Hey guys, it's Phantom, and welcome back, or welcome to my channel for another episode of the Ask Phantom podcast. So, quick update. I kind of updated my podcast genre. Because this is a career advice and spirituality podcast now. So, ooh, I thought it was gonna fall. Okay, so sorry for the noise in the background. Can't really control it. Anyway, yeah, I was talking about my private school experience, in the last episode, or for the last two episodes. But for today's episode, I thought I could talk about just all of that in general and how that kind of all of that in general, and I don't know, how it helped with my spiritual awakening, and finding out that I I'm a medium. So, a little bit of backtrack. So, as you know from the previous episodes, I grew up very, I don't know, just very focused on religious practice. Very focused on religious practice, I guess. And I kind of changed my views, later on. So, yeah. Anyway, kind of how that contributed to my spiritual awakening and finding out I was a medium, or, I'm a medium, and work with spirit guides, deities, and sometimes dark entities, mainly dark angels is what I work with. So finding out that I was a spiritualist, and that I was a medium, was pretty shocking to me, but it made sense. Now, it didn't make sense at the time, but now years later it makes a lot more sense. So, when I was growing up, I was a very, I don't know, I liked to question things. I was very curious. I was extremely curious. I read the Bible, not I read the Bible, not as much anymore because because my views have changed. But yeah, I read the Bible. I went to church sometimes, not all the time. You can be religious and not attend church. You don't have to go to church if you don't want to. You can be religious and not attend church. But yeah, as my views changed, as I got older, I started experiencing things that others don't really experience. I remember when I was, I was like still a student, and I was like still a student when this was happening. I found out that I was a medium and that the majority of my abilities were dormant for most of my life, except for the fact that I would have, vivid dreams and vivid nightmares and be able to recall my dreams from a very young age. Like, it was sometimes really scary, but I kind of understand it more now. But yeah, like how I found out that I was a medium was, as I said, I was still in school. I was praying one day. After a loss, and then I ended up, you know, having visions of, heaven. Um, you know, I had a couple visions of heaven in my time. Probably about, I don't know, probably about like 2 or 3. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I had a vision of heaven, and I you know, I I guess I also work with animal spirits as well as spirits of humans. And I mean, like I was kind of shocked, to say the least. And then like more things happened as I got older, like when I lost another pet. I didn't see heaven that time. I had a vision of a pet sitting next to me. And it was kind of crazy. Now I knew I was different from a lot of other people because, like, okay, you think when you dream you lose you can't recall what you dreamt about. But the thing with me is, like, I can recall my dreams, and sometimes it's terrifying because sometimes, like, I don't know if you have heard of like lucid dreaming or vivid dreams, but I could lucid dream and vivid dream, and I've been able to recall all of my dreams. Um, we just had a full moon not too long ago. Um, we just had a full moon not too long ago, and you know, I ended up having a vision during that full moon, and I barely slept. Like, I don't think I have ever been so tired in my life. Like, I take advantage of sleep. And I don't think I've ever been so tired. Like, I barely remember what I dreamt about. I barely remember what I dreamt about too. Um, because it was like overshadowed by a vision I had. But yeah, like, it's it's weird. Like, growing up, if you grow up in religion and you find out that you are gifted, spiritually gifted, or if you've always known that you're spiritually gifted, it's kind of hard to explain that. It's kind of hard to explain that. Um, like, sometimes you grow up praying a lot, or watching watching shows and like watching certain programs. But I remember I loved learning about a lot of things, especially like religious history. I loved learning about religious history. I still do to this day. Like, I still do. Um, I kind of knew I was different from other people because I was, growing up, how some people are like interested in the Sabrina the Sabrina shows and adaptations and stuff. I was very into Sabrina growing up, which, was cool. I've always loved Sabrina. Always, like, since I was a kid. Um I can't even remember the first time I started watching Sabrina, but like I loved watching I loved watching Sabrina as a kid. And then when Chaos came out, if you don't know what Chaos is, it's the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's the newest addition to the Sabrina franchise. Sabrina has been around since Sabrina's been around since the 90s. So, like, I grew up watching pretty much every uh, form of Sabrina, form of the Sabrina show there is. You know, like, I've grown up watching a lot of Sabrina. I was very into learning about that stuff and learning about, like, the history of holidays, religious history, and everything like that. Like, I just loved history so much. Um, when I when I was growing up, I still do. There are some things in history I learned that have probably scarred me for the rest of my life. Learning about it. But yeah, like I was always fascinated by religious history. So, yeah. So, yeah, I watched a lot of Sabrina growing up. I had encounters with spirit a couple times. I met my guides. I met one of my guides and guardians. Couple of, I met a few of my guides and guardians. And yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this about myself until like years later. I mean, this first happened like 7 years ago. Um like, this literally first happened 7 years ago, and I thought it was, I thought it was a normal I thought it was a normal thing. I thought everyone had that type of experience, I thought it was a normal thing, so I, kind of sat on it for a while. I didn't really think about it until a couple years later, when I remember I had some crazy weird encounters. Like, crazy weird. Um, I had some crazy weird encounters growing up. Like, I saw an angel I saw an angelic figure for the first time, or like it was glowing. Really it was really gorgeous. And then come to find out that it was one of my guides. um Come to find out it was one of my guides. um you know I I thought that was crazy. Like, I thought everyone had the ability to, you know, remember a lot of things that happened to them. Like, I don't remember everything that happened to me growing up, but I definitely remember a lot more than I should. Like, things that the mind is supposed to block out. You know, things that the mind is intentionally supposed to block out so that you don't remember, so that you don't remember it. I remember it. Like, I don't think I've ever forgotten a dream. Maybe once or twice. Maybe once or twice I've forgotten a dream or two. But other than that, I've never forgotten my dreams. I've always had vivid dreams. They seem very vivid, very realistic. I mean, I could get into astral projection if I wanted to, but I don't know a thing about astral projection, and astral projection looks different for everybody. So yeah, I kind of grew up religious, and then I found out that I was a medium. Then I found out that I was a medium years later. Yes, you can find out things about yourself, like that, very, very early or late in life, because your abilities can be dormant. Now, there are some things I don't want to get into because, I haven't done enough research on it, or something like that, like tarot. Like, okay, I'm very interested in tarot, but I don't know the first thing about tarot. I do have a tarot app, actually. You've probably heard of the company Mystic Mondays. You've probably heard of the company Mystic Mondays. Yeah, I have their app. I have their tarot app, and you can get tarot cards from there. But I don't know the first thing about tarot. So I'd rather, like, do my research on it first. Also, not every spiritualist does tarot. There's different forms that spiritualists use to, practice with, I guess. But yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I'll be right back. I will be right back. Like, okay, I kind of know a little bit about tarot, but not enough to practice it. I'm the type of person that when I find out something, especially, after having a spiritual awakening, I like to learn more about it. And and I read a lot sorry. I read a lot growing up. A lot. Like, okay, I read so much stuff growing up. I read, when I was still practicing, I read the Bible. I don't read it anymore because I I'm a spiritualist. I don't read it anymore because I'm a spiritualist now, and I remember, like, okay, as I said, I grew up watching a lot of Sabrina. I grew up watching a lot of Sabrina when I was growing up. So, like, I've literally watched every single Sabrina. Well, yeah. Well, not every single Sabrina, but, like, the ones that I'm familiar with. Like, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Film and the TV show. Um, I've watched the animated series, Sabrina's Secret Life, the new one that was on the Hub, the new animated one that was on the Hub a couple years ago, and then I was really into Chaos when it came out. I still remember when Chaos premiered, because that day I was reading so many articles that day. And if you're wondering, I'm pretty sure October was the month that Chaos came out. Cause I remember it being October. This was a couple years ago. Because it's 2021 now, and Chaos came out in 2018 and ended last year. It's a four-parter. If you're into that, I recommend you if you're into if you're into Sabrina, I recommend you watch it. It's very interesting. I learned a lot from that show. I didn't learn everything from that show, but I learned a lot. Because, I read to get information as well. So, yeah, this kind of helped me in a way, like, leading up to my awakening and learning more about, and learning more about religious history. It was, so interesting. I learned about, holidays and I learned about holidays and different religions and faiths and all that. It was pretty cool. I remember learning about the history of Christian, I remember learning about the history of I guess Christian holidays, which were actually pagan holidays. Before they were made into Christian holidays. It's complicated. If you learned about the Roman Empire, if you learned about the Roman Empire, then you'd probably remember learning about all that stuff. So yeah, when I was in school, I remember we learned about that type of stuff. We learned about things Greek god, we learned about the Greek pantheon, Greek gods and goddesses, and Hercules and Zeus. we learned about I remember vividly learning in freshman year about Greek mythology. I remember learning about Greek mythology when I was in high school. Sorry. I remember learning about Greek mythology when I was in high school. I remember learning about a lot about different practices, different faiths, different practices. I learned about the history of holidays. I remember I had to do a essay on Valentine's Day. I had to do I had to do a assignment on the history of Valentine's Day, and I was very intrigued. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And because I was a fan of Sabrina, the new one. I've been a fan of literally every Sabrina that I've ever watched. But with Chaos, remember, that's the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So the new one. So, but with Chaos, when Chaos came out, Chaos was about, I don't know, like 3 years old at the time of me doing this assignment. I got an A on the assignment, by the way. This was in high school. I still remember this. So, I read, like, a bunch of articles. I did a bunch of research. I did, like, visual research to help with this as well. Like, okay. So, if you don't know what Valentine's Day is based off of, it kind of goes into, like, pagan traditions. And, it's crazy. Valentine's Day occurred because of I believe the assassination of a saint, Saint Valentine, I believe. It's been like a year or two since doing this, but I did ace the assignment. I just can't find it. I just can't find it for some reason. I should have printed it out and, like, kept a copy. But yeah. So, I probably still have it. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I learned a lot, and I guess, because, okay, Chaos had a lot of episodes, talking about, like, backgrounds of holidays, history of holidays, or whatever, Yule, Lupercalia, and all those other holidays. Or, like, Christmas. Basically, like, Christmas, or what we would call Valentine's Day. And other forms of faith are known as Lupercalia and Yule. Sorry, I'm out of water. So, like, learning about Lupercalia, I think it's Lupercalia. I don't know why I pronounce it I don't know why I pronounce it with a B. Like, that it sounds like there's a B in it when it comes out of my mouth. But it's Lupercalia. And I definitely recommend doing some research on it because it's crazy. I thought it was crazy to learn about. Yes, it was very interesting, but yes, it was extremely interesting for someone who is, I don't know, like, fascinated by that stuff. But, like, it was crazy to learn about, too, at the same time. And then, and then as time went on, I started listening to, I started getting into podcasts, like spirituality podcasts. And there's a couple of podcasts I actually really enjoy. Like, I enjoy Alison Dubois' podcast. You know, with her experience on mediumship and everything. And I enjoy this podcast called Mediumship Matters. I just started listening to it and I love it. Like, I just love learning history of things. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting to me to learn about that type of stuff, both in school and just like on my own. Cause like I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, this is all still very new to me, so I'm just trying to figure everything out. And yeah, I mean, do I recommend watching shows like Chaos and like getting all your information from a show? No. Like, I didn't get all my information from Chaos when I did that assignment because I did like a lot of other research too, but I just used shows like Chaos as an example because it talked about like holidays, talked about the history of holidays, like, you know, the true history of holidays, I guess. It's pretty confusing, but I mean, it's interesting. So, yeah. I mean, anyone can be curious. It's fine to be curious. Like, anyone can be curious. Anyone can be fascinated with that stuff. But like me, I guess history was always one of my favorites. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was like US history or, you know, or like it didn't matter if it was US history, ancient history, mythologies. Like, it didn't matter. I loved history. I still love history. I mean, there's some things in history that I know too much of, so it freaks me out. Like, I remember when I learned about certain things that happened. I'm not going to mention them. But you probably know what I'm talking about. You know, like, I learned a lot from, you know, like from like religious history to Greek mythology. I loved learning about Greek mythology, actually. You know, like religious history, history of holidays and celebrations and like all that stuff. And there are some things that I know too much of, like too much about, from me being a bookworm. I was an extreme bookworm. I was an extreme bookworm growing up. Like, extreme. I remember the first time learning about this topic. Mind you, I learned about the same topic for a couple years. Like, it freaked me out because I knew too much. Probably already know what I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna say it. I don't know, because I know too much and it scares me. So yeah, like I learned about a lot of stuff. I watched a lot of films. I watched a lot of educational films. Yeah, I watched a lot of educational films and things like that, like educational TV. things, programs like the 700 Club. If you don't know what the 700 Club is, you probably, you might have seen it once or twice. I don't know what to explain it as. I don't know, it's a program. I'm not gonna, you probably know what it is. I don't really know what it's classified. Under, but I have seen the 700 Club a couple times. Kind of freaks me out a little bit. For a good reason. Because I had a different experience than a lot of other people would. But yeah, I learned a lot. I learned about Greek mythology, about medieval times. I learned about history of popular holidays. I learned about what happened to certain, groups of people. Very, very scary, very traumatizing. Both through, school and through reading about it. And, both through school, through reading, because I read a lot of historical stuff. Very into history. Very, very into history. I was a history freak. I was very, very into history. I was fascinated. I was so fascinated by certain things in history that it would scare me. It would scare the living daylights out of me. If I knew so much, I couldn't even touch. I couldn't touch another educational book. Since learning about it and seeing it. So yeah, it's interesting coming from a certain standpoint of, growing up in a certain type of background and, finding out that I was gifted in a sense, and then being obsessed with history. History was literally my favorite class. It didn't matter if it was US history, medieval history. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was US, world history, religious history. It didn't matter. I was obsessed with history. I was a history freak growing up. So yeah, I guess I could talk more about it, but I don't really have any more to say on it. So yeah, I don't want this to be too long. I'm not really gonna edit it or anything, but yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, then you know that the podcast is available on pretty much a lot of different platforms. So yeah, and it's also available on my YouTube channel as well as podcasting platforms. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and bye-bye, guys.